It's about 2.5 hours.
Shall we convene? Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Professor Abdulaziz Saeed, Director of our Center for Global Peace, I would like to welcome each of you to American University. We're home to the largest school of international affairs in the United States. AU is also the home of one of the most innovative and well-established academic programs in international peace and conflict resolution, housed in our School of International Service. Our International Peace and Conflict Resolution program is the only such program in the United States to offer a concentration in Islamic peace studies, which identifies and analyzes Islamic concepts of peacemaking and conflict resolution, the Islamic toolbox, so to speak. In addition to our academic program, we established the Center for Global Peace in 1996 to provide a framework for our public programs. As AU's only university-wide center, we collaborate with faculty and researchers in diverse disciplines, including law, justice, human rights, the fine arts, education, and international relations. With regard to the Middle East, we launched 2 working group initiatives, one on Iraq, which focuses on examining the premise that federalism is a viable and sustainable organizing structure for Iraq, and the other on Iran, which focuses on how to advance U.S.-Iran dialogue through Track 2 collaboration. In 1999, we established the Mustafa Barzani Scholar of Global Kurdish Studies post within the center. Our first and current occupant of the post is Professor Edmund Gharib. In conjunction with our research, teaching, curriculum development, and public programs on Kurdish issues in global context, we also established 2 Barzani Graduate Peace Fellowships for studies at the master's level here at American University. We will hold our second biannual international conference on Kurdish issues in 2 weeks on Saturday, June 8th, here at the AU Law School. This year's theme is Iraq's Kurds, a Key to Stability in Iraq, and I've left brochures outside. Finally, we are very excited about our role in a 6-member academic consortium, which includes ourselves, the Center for Global Peace, Columbia University's International Conflict Resolution Program, the Conflict Management Group in Cambridge, Mass., which came out of Harvard University, and the 3 universities in Iraqi Kurdistan, Dahuk, Salahuddin, and Sulaymaniyah. The consortium is an innovative initiative that stresses the importance of collaboration and higher education in building a more open and prosperous Iraqi Kurdistan region. The consortium seeks to break the isolation of Iraq's Kurds by encouraging academic cooperation and exchange, both within the region and between partners in Iraqi Kurdistan and the U.S. We believe our efforts have already been quite successful. 24 representatives of the 3 universities in Iraqi Kurdistan came to the U.S. for 2 weeks in October 2000 for conflict resolution training and a study tour on federalism and local governance. The group reassembled in June 2001 in Beirut, where the consortium was formally established. Recent developments include a 4-day conference on conflict resolution sponsored by the consortium's chapter at the University of Salahuddin, and efforts by consortium members at the University of Sulaymaniyah to translate a study on conflict resolution from English into Kurdish. We believe that the consortium can serve as a model for the entire region. Working cooperatively on higher education initiatives is a reinforcing activity that breaks old patterns that contribute to isolation. Cooperation encourages universities to become focal points for the growth of civil society and increase the capacity of universities to educate future generations of responsible leaders and citizens in Iraq and elsewhere. Enough on what we do here at AU. I am honored and delighted to have an opportunity to work with Hussein Sanjari to offer AU as a safe space for this important seminar on prospects for democracy in Iraq. As many of you know, Hussein and Sonia, his wife, have worked tirelessly for many weeks to implement this event, and our center is happy to provide a space at AU for this important endeavor. And so without further ado, I would like to introduce Jennifer Windsor, Executive Director of Freedom House here in Washington, D.C. Thank you.
Good morning. I just would like to add my additional words of welcome to all of you and to tell you how pleased that the Iraq Institute for Democracy has asked Freedom House to co-sponsor this important conference here today. Freedom House, founded in 1941, is a nonpartisan organization dedicated to expanding freedom and democracy around the world. We accomplish that through publishing annual surveys of the state of freedom around the world, as well as through programs that work with the reformers in different societies to promote change, and through advocacy to highlight abuses in particular countries and to make sure that democracy is a priority for U.S. foreign policy. In our annual survey, we rank countries on the basis of their respect for political rights and civil liberties. As a result of that ranking, we establish a list of countries that are considered the worst of the worst, the most repressive regimes. Iraq, not surprisingly, is among that list each year, which we present to the United Nations Commission on Human Rights in Geneva. Our most recent report on Iraq, contained in this document, The World's Most Repressive Regimes, and we will have additional copies available for those that are interested, documents the facts that all of those in the room know all too well: banning of opposition parties, arrest, torture, summary executions, no respect for civil liberties. In an era in which democratic change has swept most of the world, the Iraqi government distinguishes itself as rejecting all attempts to make itself accountable to its own population. In this time, we must all come together to use all of our combined talents and knowledge to consider what can be done to help those within Iraq who desire democracy to bring about change. I hope that this conference generates fruitful ideas and discussions about how we can all best proceed. We should do so not because it is in the U.S. national interest, but because it is in the Iraqi national interest, and it is the fundamental right of the citizens of Iraq to have a say in how they are governed. Now it is my true pleasure to introduce Hussein Sinjari, who is the founder and president of the Iraq Institute for Democracy. The Iraq Institute is a nonprofit charity or foundation with NGO status located in Erbil, North Iraq, which strives for political reform in the federal state of Iraq and the establishment of universal liberal values so that these ideals become a way of life to ensure the evolution of liberalization and a stable democracy in Iraq. I will now turn it over to Hussein, who will outline the proceedings over the next several days and the objectives of this important conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, good morning. Please allow me to express my gratitude for your participation in this seminar. My special thanks go to Freedom House, who sponsored this seminar, and to the American University for hosting it. Iraq Institute for Democracy is engaged in democracy-building activities supported by both the National Endowment for Democracy, USA, and the Westminster Foundation for Democracy, United Kingdom. The Kurdistan Regional Government is also supporting the Institute's initiatives for the dissemination of political democratic culture. My special gratitude goes to His Excellency Nachir Van Barzani, Prime Minister of the Kurdistan Regional Government, for supporting our projects, including this seminar. Iraq Institute is supporting Al-Ahali, the liberal newspaper published in Arabic language in Erbil, and the Friends for Democracy in Iraq, the grassroots organization to help the development of a movement for democratic change in Iraq. The internal transformation of our country after the fall of the dictatorship will allow regional cooperation among all the states and all the peoples in the Middle East, and our integration with the civilized world. The transitional period is ahead of us. This is the time for national reconciliation so that we will be able to prepare ourselves with democracy building in our country. Iraq will come out of its ashes and seclusion and will open its doors to the integrated world, modernize the political and economic system and institutions, and our country, Iraq, will be held up as a model of reform. When the dictatorship is removed, the question is whether to come down on one foot or on both, safely and surely. That will explain the future, and here we must be united to safeguard the security and democratic future for the people. The world democracies must offer promise and hope, and the promise and hope should be realized. The siren's song of democracy and freedom is real. The beat is strong, and the audience is immensely enthusiastic. Let us not miss this momentum. Meanwhile, Iraq's most taboo subject is democracy, yet in the north part of the country, Kurdistan has started the civic road to liberty. This transformation should be strengthened by national reconciliation, a lively parliament, and a critical liberal media, so that a fledgling democracy in Kurdistan becomes a real inspiration for other parts of our country. Yet Kurds must be assured of a secured and a prosperous future in a federal Iraq. Our Iraqi people are crying for change, yet change must bring alleviation of a human suffering rather than similar or further deterioration and despair. Replacing a dictator with another will not bring stability. People want their future rulers to be democratic and responsible, not subservient and subdued. The land of Mesopotamia, of the Tigris and the Euphrates, of Assyria and Babylon, of Sumer and Akkad, the land of biblical Nineveh and Ur of Abraham, the father of the faith, the land of Arbaello and the land of Hammurabi and Ashurbanipal, the land of Arabs and Kurds, Shiites and Sunnites, Assyrians and Chaldeans, Turkoman and Yazidis, is promising once again to become the bridge of prosperity and peace and integration for ourselves and for our neighbors, and indeed for the rest of the world. Democracy and liberty will eventually be achieved when we, the people of Iraq, push for it, and world democracies led by the US push together with us for this liberty and democracy. Thank you. Laura Abrams, please, of the National Endowment for Democracy. I think it's your turn.
Yeah.
Or I think, I'm sorry, I think it's late.
Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah, I'm sorry. Dr. Laith Kubba, please, from the National Endowment for Democracy, Kakali.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Hussein. Welcome to you all, especially those who traveled from out of town and took the time off and trouble to come here. It is indeed my pleasure to participate and to welcome you. I will try in the few minutes I have to make some statements, both in my capacity as the Senior Program Officer for the Middle East and North Africa at the National Endowment for Democracy. This is what I've been doing in the last nearly 4 years. And I also would like to make a few comments in my capacity as an Iraqi, like many of Iraqis here today, have been working over the last 20, 30 years to try to bring about a legitimate government and establish democracy and restore Iraq's freedom. Let me say a few words about the NED for those of you who do not know what the National Endowment for Democracy, NED, stands for. Basically, the NED is a donor foundation with nearly 2 decades of experience in assisting nations that are attempting or trying to make the transition from wherever they are to a more democratic systems. My job at the NED covers the Middle East and North Africa, so that covers nearly all the Arab states, Iran, Turkey, and Afghanistan. As you can see, this is a very wide range of countries with very interesting challenges on trying to make the transition there to democracy. And that area of activity covers a wide range of sectors. We deal with human rights, we deal with women's rights, with issues to do with elections, transparency, fighting corruption, open markets, freedom of the press, etc. Over the years, I've learned that there is obviously no set format into making that transition and building democracy, but there are many, many lessons that can be learned, and I think they are most relevant to Iraq. Without that, democracies cannot be built by bombs and bullets, but by visionaries and groups who are committed to seeing democracy established there. The Middle East is in no exception, and Iraq is without doubt no exception. It is complex, it is challenging, but I believe all nations in Iraq and in other parts of the world has this innate quest for freedom and taking responsibility and charge of their own destiny. Now, 3 years ago when I joined the NED, we had no programs in Iraq. There was one group working on Iraq based in Washington, D.C. Today we have 4 projects. We're supporting 4 projects in North Iraq. The first, I think, project, we were approached nearly 3 years ago with one group who started its work with whatever space was available in North Iraq to work on health awareness. And having established the network of how to do it, how to campaign, how to reach out, they came to us with a proposal to do a human rights awareness. We thought the idea was innovative, there is light there, and we gave them a very small grant. That quickly started interest in the region. It triggered that interest. As I said, now we have 4 programs. I've met Sinjari, who established the Iraq Institute nearly 2 years ago, and the endowment is very pleased to have given him the first grant to establish a civic education program in North Iraq. And I think from there on, he surprised all of us and took the initiative beyond our expectations in establishing a number of activities, including launching this most recent newspaper, Al-Ahali, organizing these conferences. And I'm sure looking at the folder, you can see what events are on the way in North Iraq, democracy festivals and others. We all take pride, and I am sure the endowment will expand its programs in North Iraq as we are having more inquiries and more interests there. I also want to say a few words, not in my capacity as a senior program officer at the endowment, but in my capacity as an Iraqi, as he said, who shared with the rest of Iraqis concerns about what is going to happen to Iraq and what is happening right now. Iraq is on the news. It will be so not only in the next few months, I am sure in the next few years. The key question is no longer whether or not Saddam is going to stay in power. The question is no longer how bad Saddam is or how much of a threat he is. It's no longer even whether he is going to go. In my mind, I think Saddam's days are finished. Those questions are no longer relevant. Time has left them behind. And in particular for Iraqis, as I said, I'm speaking an Iraqi, and I want to reach out to Iraqis to say they need to reset their clocks and change their mindset and start looking to a new set of challenges that are facing them. The most pressing question is the day after, the post-Saddam era. What are Iraqis going to do about it? And the theme of this conference is very much in that context. Is democracy just a wish, or is it a viable option? If it is a viable option, how can Iraqis go about doing it? Now, listening to Iraqis everywhere, they tell you clearly that they want democracy and that they want an end not only to Saddam Hussein, but to Saddamism, so to speak, the phenomena. They do not want to replace a dictator by another dictator. They ask the world to help them in doing that. But listening to what Iraqis say is one thing, and watching what Iraqis do is totally another. Iraqis have every reason to believe and seek democracy, but I think it is extremely misleading to think that this is sufficient to create democracy in Iraq. The real challenge is what they do about it and how they're going to move ahead. So long as Iraqis simply ask others and tell others about democracy and do not do it themselves, it is not going to happen. If I want to sum up what will make democracy in Iraq, I'll sum it in one word: participation. Unless Iraqis participate and take charge and responsibility, democracy will remain a distant dream, and it will not take place. It is not going to be given to them. In fact, the root cause of corrupt politics in Iraq, inside Iraq, and the inability of Iraqis to bring change all goes back to their lack of participation. Democracy is not going to happen from the top. It's not going to happen by a decision or a decree. Democracy is going to happen when Iraqis everywhere start developing small institutions and groups and demand it in a constructive way. So participation is the key, and I'm sure this is one of the themes that will be raised in this conference, and we have North Iraq as an important space where we're looking at these experiences and participation. Of course, there are obstacles. Iraqis have been conditioned in the last 30 years not to participate. They've been conditioned to fear. In fact, they've been conditioned not even to venture outside their own heads to think about what they can do and what they should do. This conditioning is difficult. This mold of thinking needs to be broken down, and the only way to break it down is by setting models and examples of how it can be done. Initiatives like this and like initiatives by other Iraqi groups are bound to have an impact. Another important aspect that is on the way to democracy is the issue of how would Iraqis play their politics. Are they going to play it with a zero-sum game, trying to divide the cake and divide power, or are they going to look at integrating their efforts to create more space and a bigger Iraq, not only that can accommodate all of them, but with expanding opportunities for all? This is a real challenge. Again, Iraqis have not yet set models or learned how to do it. And this is a challenge facing also us and many at the donor community trying to help Iraqis to do it. No doubt all Iraqis have been victimized, some more than others, and some more severe than others. But I think all of them need to look ahead. This is the third, I think, important premise is, or the third important challenge is whether or not Iraqis are going to leave the past behind and simply take the lessons from the past, or are their minds and eyes are going to be set and locked into the past and they will miss the future. This requires leadership, it requires people who have vision, and it certainly requires, as I said, initiatives like this that will set the agenda and invite Iraqis to participate. Now, many nations have made that transition. We certainly can look at how Europe did it. After 2 world wars, they were devastated with 50 million plus people killed. But today we see integrated economies, shared experiences, and shared benefits. Even the US, with its history, it has gone through this before it reached where it reached today. We have also seen countries in the region, whether it's in Afghanistan, Lebanon, or Bosnia, when people miss out and miss or lose that vision, they can easily slide back into blood. The clock is ticking. I think Iraqis, all Iraqis, in particular, since there are many participants from Iraqi Kurdistan, I would say they are at a historical juncture. They have a moment in history, not simply to consolidate their rights, their legitimate rights about the Kurdish rights and in the region, but more importantly, to assist Iraq make that transition to democracy. Also, I think Iraqis in exile, the 2 million plus, who are more or less, I can say, free, they are healthy, many of them are wealthy, they are very much in a position to help Iraq make that transition, and they have no excuse not to. I really do hope that this conference can convey this message not only to the Iraqis, but to those who want to assist Iraq make that transition. Thank you very much. I ask Laura maybe to proceed and give us some guidelines on how to proceed on the sessions.
Thank you. Thanks. Good morning. My name is Laura Abrams-Schultz. I'm the Program Officer for the Middle East at National Endowment for Democracy. I'd also like to welcome you to this conference. I've been asked by the organizers to make a couple of introductory remarks about the structure and goals of these proceedings and a few suggestions on how to proceed so that we can maximize this opportunity. First, clearly the aim of the next 2 days is to enrich the debate on Iraq and focus discussions, not simply on the aspirations and principles on the broad topic of democratization in Iraq, but more so on the challenges ahead, including the articulation of ideas which can help Iraqis on how to proceed. As Laith mentioned, we at NED have experience in supporting efforts to promote democracy in closed and authoritarian societies, both in the Middle East and throughout the world, including projects of civic education, human rights, support for a free press, political party development, and free and fair elections. I'm sure that Laith will shed additional light on our experience and strategy in the Middle East region and will also provide insights on how representatives of the Iraqi expatriate community in particular can assist those who are working for change inside. Second, there are more than 200 participants who will be attending this meeting in the next 2 days. They include experts on Iraq and the region, from the Middle East, Asia, Europe, and the United States, who can shed light on some of the specific issues and challenges facing the country. Also in attendance are politicians and those who served or are serving in elected bodies and governments, who can provide insights on the options faced by both the Middle East region as well as the broader policy and international communities. Most important are the Iraqis who are here in attendance to state positions as well as to articulate concerns and opportunities. In addition to the panel discussions in the final meeting tomorrow afternoon, which will be a strategy session in Arabic, it is hoped that this conference will also provide the opportunity for participant networking and follow-on communications, including after the conference deliberations have ended. I'd be happy to help facilitate any such contacts. As you see in the agenda, there will be a total of 7 panel discussions covering a wide range of topics and issues. The conference organizers envision this meeting as participatory and hope to foster interaction and dialogue among attendees. Therefore, they have requested that each panelist limit his or her remarks to a maximum of 5 to 7 minutes. Please adhere to this time schedule in order to leave ample time for substantive discussions as well. Thank you for your attendance and enjoy the conference. I'd like to introduce our first panel, which is Internal Dynamics and the Prospects for Democratic Change, chaired by Rubar Sandi. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I was actually asked to speak about the relationship of business to democracy, especially for the future Iraq. And I thought before even speaking about business and democracy, the role of business in democracy, I need to point out a few points that will be the ideals and safeguarding of the democracy issue. I have to read from a statement that I have prepared. The first point is equal treatment under the law. I'm just not going to go into detail of it, I'll just mention it. A compulsory educational system, basic human rights, freedom and responsibility, elimination of all forms of prejudice, equality between man and woman, equality between people regardless of their race and ethnic and religious background, economic and social development, and obviously freedom of information. And I will speak about the economic and social development part of it. None of these principles will exist without the other ones. Obviously, they all are interconnected. Together, these ideal structures the foundation of democracy. As a member of the business community, I will briefly touch on the need for economic and social development. You will also observe how these ideals are all interconnected. Prosperity provides for financial stability, which in turn encourage and confirm the political system as a viable tool of influence and authority. An important purpose of the democratic revival in Iraq must include assisting the entrepreneurial spirit by introducing a culture of business free of governmental pressure and free of monopoly. A compulsory education system provides for a future of continuous change. Education frees the mind of people, man and woman. When men and women think of themselves as equal partners, they are able to think of ways that improve the conditions of their society. There is a complementary effect resulting in small businesses structuring a path of growth and prosperity built on knowledge and community involvement. As each individual entrepreneur is committed to business ethics, a new social order will emerge in a pluralistic and competitive economic and political environment. True economic development is only possible in a system of law and order where everyone is treated equally, such as here, United States of America. Social development occurs in a result-oriented environment automatically. When all these principles are lived in a spirit of moderation, Iraq will express unity and peace, a sign of its maturity and the happiness of its people. No democracy is possible without a certain level of prosperity. The economic well-being of a country's population is paramount for its political stability. It must therefore be one of our main goals to bring back to Iraq's population the ability to direct their individual goals and ambitions to earn a decent living, to work for their families and communities, and to own property in an environment free of government pressures and free of monopolies inherited or imposed by a few ruling clans and families. Economic development and democracy go hand in hand, and there is the view that both are two faces of the same coin. Sustainable economic growth of a society is only possible where the members of the society are allowed to constantly improve the conditions of their society and introduce new and better ideas. In other words, where citizens can decide in a pluralistic and competitive environment, economically and politically, and what is the best way for them to do. Building a culture of business in Iraq, we must first engage the citizens and not only the state to initiate and run businesses. Every country of stable political conditions is based on a balanced distribution of income, as we observe in many countries of Europe, Asia, and the Americas. It is mainly the middle class that sustains the economy of a country and secures its growth. Privileged in comparison with other countries of the region, Iraq was always a country of a sustainable middle class, counting with highly educated professionals, physicians, engineers, teachers, financiers, and many other merchants. We want Iraq to recover its heritage of a thriving country. True economic development is possible only in a system of rules that the members of a society establish themselves and adhere to, free of corruption again and free of nepotism. Iraq always was a multi-ethnic religious nation, a land known since the times of the Assyrians and Babylonians, as connected to other countries through cooperation in international commerce. We want to bring back to Iraq the great tradition of tolerance, which is the principle of Islam, under which every citizen can live, work, and prosper in a framework of equal rights for everyone. We also want to bring back equal rights and recognition to Iraq's ethnic minorities, and the largest one is the Kurdish minority in Iraq. Freedom of information is one of the indispensable elements of democracy, as it is for economic development and business. Free and uncensored information is only transmitted by the press, but equally by radio and television. A system of efficient information in modern common language such as Arabic and English also includes modern forms of telecommunication by telephone. In our day, using fiber optics and satellites, an essential component of modern telecommunication is the internet, which we certainly expect to flourish in Iraq. Let me reemphasize the geopolitical importance of Iraq, one of the largest oil reserves in the world, and with many other natural and agricultural resources. We must also recognize the value of tourism as a building block for economic and social development can be observed through its dual role as a portal inviting the world to visit and acquaint themselves with the rich culture and places Iraq has to offer, and as an opportunity and responsibility this force exerts on the population who must arise to meet the challenge tourists expect from the host country. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your attention, and I thank my friends, Mr. Sinjari and his wife Sonia. I've seen them in the past couple of months, what they have done, working day and night, because they work from the office we have in Washington, and it was their energy that really gave me the energy to do what the little things that I can contribute, and thanks to many other organizations and people who supported these events. Thank you very much. I will introduce the member of the panel who will speak hopefully between 5 to 7 minutes. I was told to be very strict in that. Since you are a businessman, then time is gold. So, okay, I said I will do that. Dr. Mahmoud Osman, an independent Kurdish politician. He came from London. And Mr. Dirham Jawad Kadhim, Iraqi National Accord, also from London. Dr. Fuad Hussein, Middle East Bureau, Amsterdam, the Netherlands. And General Najib As-Salihi, he is the president of Free Officers Movement, Free Iraqi Officers Movement, Washington. And Sheikh Muhammad Ali, Islamic researcher and INC member of leadership who traveled from London. Dr. Mahmoud Osman.
Ladies and gentlemen, beforehand I want to thank Iraq Institute for Democracy, Freedom House, and American University who cooperated in arranging this meeting. In the 7 minutes I have, I will try to go very quickly over some points, and I hope in discussion later today and tomorrow we could cover the others. Our experience with the Iraqi regime, and personally my experience, because I had gone into many sessions of negotiations with Saddam Hussein and with the Iraqi regime from 70 till 91 and even later. And our experience with them through the war they waged in Kurdistan, the big crimes they committed in Kurdistan also, tells us that these people have a mentality that is against all openness. It's a terrorist mentality. They were like that. It doesn't need anything to prove that they have relation to 11 of September, because way before 11 of September they were terrorists. And they are not ready to have any opening on democracy or any change in the Iraqi society. And I think not only Iraqi people who suffered a lot from this regime, especially Kurds, but everybody now are suffering, and they were suffering also. So I think the only solution for this situation is this for regime to go. And I don't think the danger is the weapons of mass destruction, which Saddam Hussein has, obviously. But the danger is the regime itself, because many other countries, they also have the weapons of mass destruction, including the United States. But there is no danger because they are not using it, the wrong place. So I think the danger is the regime, and the regime should go if we want this danger to be off. And the experience, the international community, and the United States especially, as long as we are talking here, and now everybody now is looking at Washington to do something, proves in the past they have cooperated with Saddam Hussein. They supported him in the 80s very much. And the feedback we suffer from is that of 80s. They gave him all types of weapons because he was fighting Khomeini. And then from 90, in the last 10 years, they had a policy of containment. Supporting proved to be disastrous. Containment proved to be wrong, as they say. And now, after 11 September, of course, there's a new thing. Everybody is talking about change in Iraq, but one doesn't see a real coherent strategy for that, because they themselves, the responsibles of the United States administration, including President Bush, they say they have still no plan for that. And he repeated that yesterday in Germany. Now, the point is, are there potentials? I mean, potential forces, or the forces, as it's written in our seminar, for change inside Iraq? Yes, the whole Iraqi people are for change. They are asking for change. They have been asking for change the last 30 years. You hardly find wholeheartedly support Saddam Hussein, and the totally not right that some people think if they go into Iraq, then there will be house-to-house fight. I think Iraqi people will oppose anybody who could get them out of Saddam Hussein's control and power. The second point, actually, we have a lot of other potential in Iraq. Iraqi opposition forces are a potential, but unfortunately they are not united, and they should be, definitely, if they want to have a real change for the sake of Iraqi people. The army is a big potential. The army has had always a key role in Iraq, in change in Iraq, and now still they could have a role, although maybe less, because Saddam Hussein liquidated a lot of Iraqi army officers, and he's continuing that. The Kurds are a big potential. I'm a Kurd myself, and I think what's going on in Iraqi Kurdistan now shows that there's a big potential, is very important, because they have the force, they have the political will and capability of doing something. They are cooperative, they have differences, but on that they don't have any differences, they are united. And they have 10 years of experience of governing an area which is not under the control of Saddam Hussein. And everybody from outside, from inside, they tell us and they say that this could be a model for the rest of Iraq, because at least it's not democratic completely, but still it's a free area, and there's a lot of difference between that area and the area supported by the government. But of course, we shouldn't forget that the Kurds have their own hesitations, and they are right to have that, because first, their past experience in the United States is not encouraging, it has been negative. They had a lot of failures in covert actions by the United States, 72, 75, 95. In 1991, they thought that something would be done, and they didn't. That's why, by their past experience, they are having hesitations towards what will happen again. Is there a real seriousness by the United States administration to change? And secondly, they have their own goals for which Kurdish people have given all those sacrifices to have a federation within Iraq, to have a real participation of Kurds in the central government. We have never had any real participation in the central government, and that's what we are after, because decision-making in Iraq, the Kurds are the important element, they should have a role in it. And I think the more Kurds have a role in the central government, the better for whole Iraq, because it will be more moderate, away from Arab fanaticism, Islamic fanaticism, and I think that Kurds are an element, make an element of moderation and of stability in Iraq, not the contrary. Of course, these are the elements that could have a role, but everybody asks now and then in future also, especially these days, are the Kurds, could they participate in a change operation without having problems, without having more problem than they have now. Now, Iraq is a danger. They want guarantees against Iraqi aggression before the change or during the change. Turkey and Iran are dangers. Turkey declares openly that they will come into Kurdistan if there is a change operation because they will be Kurdish states and they know this is not right. Iran says if Turkey comes in, why not? I will go in. So I think there should be guarantees for the Kurds against Iraqi aggression, against interference by Iran and Turkey. Those are the points Kurds stress, and they have the right to do that, to hesitate and have those points, because they cannot remove all their gains, destroy all their gains, and change the situation, and then they will give more and more sacrifices. So in one, so finally, I have to finish anyway. I hope there will be a real American commitment for a change. And I think, since '88 we have been thinking, the best thing to change in Iraq would be to indict Saddam Hussein's group. But I think we have been asking that all the time. He is a big criminal. The mass graves talk for themselves. The traces of chemical weapon crimes talk for themselves. But I think America would not do it because the Americans seem to be against the International Court, Criminal Court, which was approved in Rome, unfortunately. Thank you very much.
So now the rest of the speaker, they will have only 3 minutes because he took the rest. The next speaker is Mr. Darham Jawad Kadhim from Iraqi National Accord. Please give him a warm welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Promise to have half of the time of Dr. Osman. That is not democracy then. First of all, I'd like to thank the Iraqi Institute for Democracy for inviting us to participate in this seminar. And I would like to express our appreciation for the efforts that have been exerted to bring it up to this wonderful standard. Initially, I was preparing a paper about the pro-democracy forces in Iraq. And when I finished it, I received a communication from Kaka Sinjari asking me to talk about tribes in Iraq. Probably somebody whispered to him that I'm from a very well-known tribe in Iraq. Ladies and gentlemen, we in the Iraqi National Accord, right from the beginning, have adopted a policy which calls for indigenous Iraqi solutions for the problems in Iraq. That does not mean that we are not supposed to learn from other people's experiences. On the contrary, we always do. As we all know, that Iraq is not the only country in the world which is seeking the transition from dictatorship to a democracy. There are countries which achieved that already in a relatively short period and smooth and constructive way. There are others which are still struggling and trying. We may also add that we are witnessing the age of globalization, open media, and communication. Hence, democracy, as it is well established in some parts of the world, becomes a living model for the people who are still living under the atrocities of oppressive regimes. Therefore, we are not here to reinvent the wheel, but to make sure that the wheel in question is compatible with the chariot of our society. Ready solutions, ladies and gentlemen, are always easy and available, but they could be counterproductive in the long term. And what applies to some parts of the world may not necessarily apply to others. For example, one of the items of the agenda of our seminar calls for the evaluation of the part of NGOs can play as a pro-democracy force in Iraq. In one word, ladies and gentlemen, NGOs do not exist in Iraq. For more than 30 years, the regime had erased all traces of the civil society. I don't think that we have enough time to elaborate on this, but I would like to point out some of other elements of the structure of the Iraqi society which may play a predominant part in the forthcoming changes in Iraq. One of these elements is the tribal nature of the Iraqi society. Tribes in Iraq have been looked upon as extended families. Their traditions, their system of hierarchy, and the strong bonds between them give them profoundly strong stand among the Iraqi people. Historically, the tribes of Iraq have played an important part in the politics of the country. Presently, they are fighting the dictatorship like any other sector of the Iraqi society. Therefore, we should not ignore their role in future Iraq. However, the issue is of great importance and affects wide sectors of the Iraqi society in all parts of Iraq, including Iraqi Kurdistan. Further studies need to be conducted in the future, and the tribal system need to be integrated into modern and democratic Iraq. It is our responsibility to cultivate their good traditions, direct their sense of community, to participate in the process of change, and to be integrated eventually into a civilized democratic society. This is just an opening to highlight the distinguished characteristic of our society, which should be taken into consideration. In thanking you again for this opportunity, I'm ready to discuss this issue and take it a bit further as long as time permits. Thank you.
Thank you. That was 6 minutes. The next speaker is Dr. Fuad Hussein from Middle East Bureau. Yes.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here and to participate in the discussion about the future of Iraq. My topic is about democracy related to the opposition in that country. And I will need 7 minutes, Mr. Chairman. In recent years, democracy has become the main aim of the majority of, if not all, Iraqi opposition groups and parties. It is obvious to have democracy, there must be democratic, social, and political forces. In order to have these forces, a democratic culture is needed, for which in turn, a democratic elite is necessary. The question is, does Iraqi society possess democratic forces? If so, what kind? Is there a democratic culture in Iraq? What is the role of the elite in relation to this cause? Is there a process of democratization in Iraqi society? What force or forces guide this process? Is democracy a solution, or it is the beginning of a new problem in Iraq? These questions and many others need serious attention and discussion so that one can reach some conclusions. I shall try, very briefly, to deal with some of these topics and hope that others will deal with the rest. Since the Ba'ath Party came to power in 1968, Iraqi society has gone through a process of radical reforms on the basis of the ideology of the Ba'ath Party and the ideas of Saddam Hussein. After that, Iraq has passed through the following stages. 1. Centralization of power in the hands of one party, and later on in the hands of one family, and then one person. 2. Domination of the ideology of the Ba'ath Party and the ideas of Saddam Hussein. Militarization of the Iraqi society. Nationalization of the important economic sectors and government control of all important economic power. Demolition of all social and religious centers. Glorification of the culture of violence. Long internal and external wars enhanced the culture of surviving in groups or as individuals, thus becoming part of the mentality of Iraqi society. 8, the last one, fear and lack of trust have become strong traits in Iraqi society and even among Iraqis in exile. These aspects show that there are no democratic values within the present political structure in Iraq. Let me try to point out the aspects related to the opposition movement and to find if a democratic culture is rooted there. Talking about opposition in Iraq, one must bear in mind that we are not discussing a situation where parties were founded in a democratic atmosphere and have functioned in a parliament. The Iraqi opposition parties were usually founded secretly, and their political activities were underground. The secret character of the opposition parties resulted in a very centralistic organization, and the main principle is first, carry out the order and then discuss it. Giving orders has become part of the mentality of the leadership of many parties, and obeying these orders has become part of the political culture of the members of the parties. The opposition being persecuted by the Iraqi regime developed not only a secret character, but also a military discipline. The main opposition groups were and still are involved in military activities next to political ones. They have little space for developing an open and transparent culture, which is necessary for developing a democratic political life. The members of the opposition groups have been either killed and liquidated by the Iraqi Secret Service or are in the hiding in Iraq developing their secret and important activities, or they have been jailed or they have gone into exile. Having said that, one must keep in mind that a new situation has emerged since 1991. The power of the regime and its intelligence services have been weakened. This gives the various opposition groups the opportunity to move easily compared to the situation before the Second Gulf War of 1991. The most important change in this field is the existence of the safe haven since 1991, far away from the control of the Iraqi regime. In this area, under the power of the Kurdish party in Iraqi Kurdistan, a variety of culture, social, religious, and political ideologies has emerged. This new phenomenon in both Kurdish and Iraqi political life has resulted in a radical change in the character of the Kurdish political parties and the entire society in Kurdistan. The Kurdish political parties, especially the two largest ones, the Kurdistan Democratic Party, KDP, and the Patriotic Union of Kurdistan, PUK, were resistance parties, fighting for a long time a defensive struggle against the aggression of the Iraqi regime in Kurdistan. Because of years of involvement in the resistance in the mountains, the military character of these organizations was tangible. The creation of the safe haven has had two important consequences, namely that the leaders and their resistance fighters, one, came back to the towns, and second, they came to power. Having authority to take care of the lives of more than 3 million people brought a huge responsibility. Dealing with the diversity of the Kurdish society and the existence of many parties have led to a culture of dialogue and of recognition of the other. Although the new situation brought new challenges and many problems and conflicts among the parties, it was possible for the Kurds to found a system which is incomparable to that in Baghdad. the process of democratization of any society, but especially societies in which fear and violence have become part of the culture, is an extremely difficult job, complicated by the fact that different regional powers are not very eager to have a democratic process in Kurdistan or in Iraq as a whole. Finally, one can argue that if the Iraqi people get the chance to be free from the regime in Baghdad, they will easily be able to begin with the democratic process like the Kurds have done. Perhaps a better and more developed Kurdistan can function as a model for the future system of Iraq. On the other hand, one can also argue that a sick society, such as the one in Iraq, which has neither a democratic culture nor democratic organizations, cannot start building an open system. A key role in Iraq for the Kurds means, among other things, that a system of coalition must emerge so that one can speak of a large representation of the Iraqi people, but also about a stable, sustainable political system in Iraq. In other words, Iraq needs, 1, a government with wide representations, 2, stable, sustainable political system. The Kurds can play an important, perhaps the most important part in guaranteeing these two issues. If these two elements will be realized in Iraq, a process of democratization can start. However, establishing such a system will be very difficult without help from the outside world, especially from the Western democratic countries. It is obvious that many regional countries will be ready to intervene in Iraqi internal affairs and to put obstacles in the way of any political developments in that country. Without the help from the Western countries, they will succeed to reach some of their aims, which are not in the benefit of a democracy in Iraq. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Our next speaker is General Najib al-Salehi. He is the president of Free Iraqi Officers Movement. General Najib. And he's based in Washington.
صباح الخير. خلال الدقائق المعدودة القصيرة القادمة راح أتحدث عن موضوع الجيش العراقي والديمقراطية. ويبدو أن هذا الموضوع غريب، لأن هناك دائما اعتقاد سائد بأن الجيش يشكل مصدر خطر على الحياة البرلمانية والمجتمع المدني، وأن الجيش والديمقراطية نقيضان لا يلتقيان، ولا سيما في بلدان العالم الثالث. ولكن ما حصل في العراق منذ عام 68 هو شيء آخر، عندما سيطرت جماعة مدنية هذه المرة، حزبية ومخابراتية يقودها صدام على مقاليد الدولة والسلطة في الحكم، وجعلت من الجيش العراقي ضحية، بالإضافة إلى كونها أداة بيديها لتحقيق مآربها الدكتاتورية في العراق. طيب. لقد تمكنت عصابة صدام من السيطرة على مفاصل المؤسسة العسكرية العراقية بالترهيب والترغيب والتوريط، فألغت الوجود الحقيقي للجيش العراقي بعد أن استحدثت تشكيلات أمنية وعسكرية كالحرس الخاص والحرس الجمهوري والتشكيلات الأمنية والحزبية الأخرى، وفقا لآلية استهدفت السيطرة على مفاصل القوة في المجتمع العراقي.
Okay, sorry, we have to, we're going to translate since General Najib doesn't speak English very well, so therefore I am going to read the translation paragraph by paragraph. This way we could consume some time. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The topic of today is New Iraq, democracy, and the role of the army. Currently, the predominant view of the Iraqi army is that it is a source of danger to a civil society and democracy, that the army and democracy cannot coexist. However, this does not necessarily have to be the case, and that the proper condition which I will outline below, the Iraqi army can be an important tool to help build and sustain a democratic society in a new Iraq. What has happened in Iraq, as in many third world countries, is that a civilian group, the current regime, has essentially hijacked the army, transformed it into a tool to protect the dictatorship rather than allowing it to play the proper role and fulfill its patriotic duty to defend the Iraq or the country. Saddam's gang were able to seize control over key elements of military institutions in Iraq. They have used various methods to maintain the army and to maintain the control over the armed force, including the use of terror and bribery, as well as involving them in the criminal acts against Iraqi-owned citizens. In addition, Saddam's regime effectively undermined the legitimate Iraqi army by creating special institutions such as Republican Guard, Secret Service, Special Guard, and Ba'ath Party organization. In this way, they were able to dismantle the armed force in order to ensure easy control over them. The forces that remain are used to further the regime interest only. Our vision for the future of Iraq is to build democratic civil society. In order to make this vision a reality, we need to have an army that can work alongside the new society. The Iraqi army of the future cannot be an extension of the present army, which has been made into a tool for dictatorship. It will not be possible to rebuild the Iraq nation and society on the foundation of democracy as long as the army is not prepared or supportive of such a change. We therefore must work very hard to ensure there will be a strong cooperation between the army and the rest of the society in order to create a new political life for everyone and to paint a new, brighter picture for future Iraq. The Free Officers Movement is a democratic political movement with both military and civilian membership. It is part of the Iraqi opposition, and its aim are to topple and remove Saddam Hussein's regime and build a new Iraq and democratic system and regime in Iraq. The Free Officers' view on the future role of the army is such a regime are as follows. All special military and secret service were instituted under Saddam's regime must be dismantled and abolished. The size of Iraqi must be reduced and maintained only at the level necessary to meet Iraqi future national security needs. The budget for the military must be monitored by the elected parliament and must be made public to the fullest extent possible. The army should be non-political, and it must not be used as a political tool. Accordingly, the army must be distant from political activities and must be non-discriminatory. In the other word, there must not be preferential treatment given to members of the military on a political, ethnic, religion, and tribal grounds. The army normally should be located within designated military zone and must be used as a force to ensure the security of the Iraqi and regional stability. The army must suspect and protect democracy and constitutional life, meanwhile ensure the continuous implementation of democratic and constitutional system in Iraq. Revising the Army's force attending guides, these guidelines should allow every Iraqi to join the Army in any position based on their qualification and not based on their race, religion, or their geographical location. We must reduce the gap of differences of the lifestyle level among the officers and the soldiers. Also support and increase the humane and friendly relationship among military attendees and also with the civilians to open a new page based on respect, brotherhood, and coordination. Finally, under these conditions that I have outlined, the Iraqi army can become an important tool for supporting democracy rather than undermining it. The proper role of the army is to defend the nation, not the regime. Restoring the Iraqi army to its proper role is therefore an essential step to establish democratic government. However, once the necessary changes have been made, the Iraqi army be transformed from a threat to a pillar of democratic, one of many important pillars of democracy supporting a new civilian regime. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Sheikh Muhammad Ali. He's an Islamic researcher and a member of INC. He traveled from London.
7 minutes or 10 minutes?
You have 7 minutes.
Thank you very much for the organizers. Well, democracy is education, and to practice this education within the society. And if someone say that Iraq is a third world country and democracy cannot be implemented in this country, well, I think this is not the truth if we see the history of Iraq, because there are parties in Iraq since the beginning of the centuries, from 1920 and before the establishment of the Iraq as a state. Well, if we talk about the internal forces, and Mr. Hussein wants me to concentrate on the Islamic movements, on the role of the mosques or other religious centers like the church or others, I want to raise these questions. How to encourage the internal forces? To the expectations of the internal forces from the future government and the problems that will occur in the transition period, because to transfer from dictatorship to democracy, there should be a transition period to this government. Third, to make those forces within the society to play a positive role for democratization of the society and the government. Well, first, if we look to the history of Iraq, democracy was practiced in Iraq even before the establishment of the government in 1992. And I think I don't want to spend time on this issue because Professor Peter Sluglet is here and he can speak a lot about it. If we want to speak about the role of the Islamic movements, the role of the institutions, the religious institutions, I can say liberal democracy with unlimited freedoms may not work in a Muslim society. Islamic democracy is focused on institutionalization, consensus, tolerance for diversity, and respect of the law. Complete liberal democracy is an ideal which does not work in practice. The Islamic movement in Iraq want to participate in the political process, but want a level playing field. The Islamists know that an ideology cannot stand unless it satisfies the material and spiritual demands of the people. The majority of people in Iraq will want a special role for Islam in the new government. The idea of pre-constitutional national charter, pre-constitutional national charter should be adopted by the opposition before Saddam falls and to be used during the transition period as a guidance. Fear of ethnic violence after the fall of Saddam is not founded. There will be no sectarian fighting between the Sunnis and Shias, Muslims and Christians, or Kurds and Arabs. Islamic movements believe and encourage democratic system. They also expect the power to be changed peacefully through the ballot box, and the democratic system should be based on a permanent constitution endorsed by the people and the parliament. Respect of human rights, freedom of worship, thoughts, gatherings, and respect of law. If we see we should see the experience of other countries, as Laith mentioned, countries like Lithuania to El Salvador, Chile, Latin Americans, the Eastern Europe, they have experience and they changed from dictatorship to democracy. We should educate ourselves and see what role they played in changing from dictatorship to democracy, because there was the problems that they faced before from the army, police, secret services, the economy, and some social problems and violations of human rights. And I don't want to go through what I wrote, and I think Mr. Hussein can publish it later on. There are some challenges to the government and to the transitional government. What to do with the formal elites? Second, what to do with the former lower level officials? Third, what to do about the frustrated popular expectations? When the state and its agents have committed crimes, there is a psychological need in a society for political justice to enable it to move forward. Well, I think that also if we want to talk more about the mosque and what the clergy people, what the religious institutions can do and work within the democratic reforms, I think the centers should have a role for educating the public toward the political change, toward the culturally and religious changes, as well as to respect the human rights. I think there should be a mutual trust between those centers, between those institutions and the newly created democratic government. If it is possible to utilize properly and given the freedom, it will become an influential factor on public opinion and in education the people in their rights and their responsibilities. I think those responsibilities and the rights of the people is very important to be educated to the society, and this can be done by those institutions. If I want to talk about the expectations and then to talk about the policies for the transitional period we should handle by any transitional government, because this will encourage the internal forces to play a positive role within this government. I can say a national accord is very important by representation of political group or individuals in the transitional government prior to the election. It will be important to build national accord. The transitional government should show an acceptable image to the region and to the international community. Second, justice and national reconciliation. Iraqis need to see justice done for the abuses inflicted by the current regime. However, national reconciliation is also necessary. We would benefit of several issues such as an amnesty declaration with domestic or international tribunals, the need to rebuild Iraq's judicial system, and having international human rights monitoring during a transition period. Third, stability and legitimacy. Prior to the absence of election, the level of legitimacy and authority will prescribe the parameters within which the transitional government can act efficiently, and it should not be a vacuum of power. Third, the army, security apparatus, and civil service, reduction in the Iraqi armed forces is a signal of Iraq's benign intentions toward its neighbors and to reduce the financial drain on the country. Multi-layered security apparatus should be dismantled and a new shape should be found, and also for the civil services. The economic issues, Iraq income will be unable to meet simultaneously the cost of payments to the international community, be rebuilding the infrastructure and feeding Iraqis. Feeding Iraqis. So we should negotiate with the international community about the payments, a drastic reduction in military expenditure, and concentration on the agriculture sector. About the regional policies, which is very important for the transition period, a new government will face a challenge of reviewing its past regional policies and the role of Iraq in the region, including the role in the Middle East peace process. In conclusion, I think Iraqi opposition needs to create a well-known body of thinking about the transition period and publicize it within Iraq, regionally and internationally, to establish a set of criteria and expectation for the transition period. 2, we should have an emergency plan for facing the feeding the Iraqis, political agenda, and also the security within the country. The transition government, 3, should state immediately that it tends to behave in such a way as to have the sanctions lifted. We should reconstruct, 4, we should reconstruct the establishment of military, and the military should be away from any political reforms or within the government, as we have experience from other countries. The Iraqi 5th or 6th, the Iraqi intellectuals and the opposition should have a declaration of agreement for the transition period, and this is very important, to democracy with all the aims, goals, and demands from the international community, and particularly the United States of America, for the regime's change in Iraq and the future of their country. Thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you very much. If I could ask the member of the panel if they could come here for open discussions. Oh, please don't put me in that situation. So, the session is open for discussion, so if anybody has a question, to just please to make it precise and very focused and short, not long statements because of the time constraint. Thank you very much. Yeah. Yes.
I have 2 questions actually. One about the army. During the Gulf War, the army split into 3 groups: pro-government, anti-government, and 1 neutral in the north. Now, as we know, I mean, the Iraqi regime is full of vices. Oceans wouldn't wash them away, but they have one virtue: they kept the military under the control of the politicians. Now, we need the army to remove Saddam. It is a crucial role, I know that. But wouldn't that open the gate again for endless coups d'etats that destroyed Iraq's civil society, deformed the very structure of the Iraq state? So the question is, how could we make the army give a positive input into the change, yet not controlling it? This is a very crucial and important question. And I'm asking this to General Al-Salahi. I know his writings, I know that he's, pro-democracy. I mean, he's a staunch advocate of democracy, yet, I mean, society is about correlation of social forces rather than individual intentions.
I'm sorry because I didn't know. I will translate for him, so I did not pay attention properly to the question.
أقول إحنا نحتاج الجيش لإزالة صدام. هذه مسألة جدا منتهي منها. بس بنفس الوقت هذا راح يفتح الطريق لأنه الجيش يسيطر على الوضع، لأنه تجربتنا خلال من ثورة تموز إلى 68 مشكلتنا كانت أنه الجيش العراقي دمر المجتمع المدني في الجيل اللي قبله. البعثيين عندهم مساوئ كثيرة ولكن عندهم فضيلة واحدة حقيقة هو سيطرة السياسيين على الجيش، لأنه في كل الدول المتمدنة الجيش خاضع للسياسيين وليس العكس. تلاحظوا شلون؟ واحدة من فضائل البعث القليلة جدا والنادرة، يمكن الفضيلة الوحيدة هاي وغير المقصودة يمكن. فالمشكلة كيف ننزج بالجيش العراقي في عملية التغيير، بنفس الوقت ما نخليه يسيطر عليها، يعني بنفس الوقت نخرج بحكومة مدنية. كيف نحل هذا الإشكال؟ أنا عندي ثقة أنك رجل يعني تؤيد الديمقراطية وتعمل في سبيلها من خلال قراءتي لك وما سمعت عنك، ولكن أنت فرد في النهاية. يعني المشكلة تقرر علاقات قوى داخل البلد، فكيف شايف أنت هاي القضية؟ I have another question about tribes. Shall I put it now or later?
Because I forgot what you've asked. So he. تفضل.
الحقيقة هذا سؤال يعني ينطرح بشكل يعني مهم، وخاصة بهذه المرحلة بعد ما بدينا نسمع أنه الجيش راح يكون له دور كبير في عملية التغيير بالعراق. مهما يكون الدور المستقبلي للجيش العراقي في تغيير النظام راح يكون محدود، لأنه النظام العراقي بدأت عملية تغييره بالعراق بشكل مباشر على الأقل من 10 سنوات مضت. صدام ما راح يسقط بالضربة القاضية. صدام ينزف صار له 10 سنوات، اشتركت به قطاعات شعبية كثيرة واشتركوا به عسكريين كثيرين، منهم من استشهد ومنهم من باقي بالقوات المسلحة. وبالأخير تغيير صدام راح يصير بمزيج من القوى الشعبية اللي تعمل بشكل متواصل، زائدا الجيش، زائدا العامل الدولي. فالجيش ما راح ياخذ عامل البطولة في الإطاحة بصدام، وعليه ما راح تكون له هذيك الريادية في السيطرة والاستمرار بالحكم. لا سيما أنه طبيعة القادة العسكريين الموجودين الآن بالمؤسسة العسكرية العراقية ما بيهم من القيادات اللي تتمثل بها القوة والديكتاتورية العسكرية اللي كانت موجودة في العقود الماضية. فما راح، وهذا طبعا يعني مو شكل مطلق، لكنه احتمالية كبيرة أنه الحالة المدنية والديمقراطية والحياة الجديدة هي اللي راح تضغي على القوة العسكرية. الآن ما موجودة قوة عسكرية كبيرة.
Basically what he's saying that the military will not take the leading role to change the regime. He believes that will be a combination of military and civilian together to take that role, and the military will have, of course, its role for time being, but in the future to have
plus international forces,
right, where he was talking about the Iraqi military, and in the future the military would have a limited role in the Iraqis' day-to-day operation. That is the nutshell, if I have to say, what he's basically believing in.
سؤال ها.
I wanted to ask about international efforts to organize the opposition. Would it be useful to have something like a 6+2 process where you have the neighboring states participate with the United States and Russia, say, in trying to create an opposition government in exile? Would that help overcome all the infighting that we see? And also, do these people think they are capable of overcoming this infighting on their own, given that even in this country we don't know which opposition group the U.S. government is supporting?
Well, I think the Iraqi opposition are united in their goals and aims. And well, this is very important. They are united against the dictatorship. They are united to transfer to democracy, as you heard today. And they organized themselves during the last 20 years, within the Iraqi National Congress and many conferences. You can see the agenda of the political agenda of the Iraqi National Congress. It is not different from any other groups, even if they are not in the INC. But I think the most important gathering was in Salahuddin, inside Iraq, in the Kurdistan area, which the Iraqi opposition all united together for a political agenda. Secondly, I think we do need a support from the international community, the regional countries, after the damages that happened during the last 34 years by this regime. And of course, because of the United Nations resolutions, because of the weapons of mass destructions, because of the terrorism distributed by the regime, all these needs, all these issues should be supported by the international community to the Iraqi opposition and to the Iraqi people, because we couldn't face such a brutal regime with all these weapons of mass destructions and with all the brutality of its army and security apparatus.
With all due respect, I don't think you quite answered. Would it be useful to have a grouping such as we've seen with Afghanistan, where you have the neighboring states, Turkey, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, plus several others, meet with representatives of the Iraqi opposition and try to form some sort of unified government before the fact?
Well, I think a unified government or a transitional government, we call it, and this was announced years before by the Iraqi oppositions, is very important for the transition period, since we see that there is a solid political agenda for Iraq or the international community to support the Iraqis for the future change.
Still didn't answer my question.
What do you want for
as well? As we've seen in Afghanistan. Maybe
Yeah, anyway, I got the question. I think he answered part of it. I think a government in exile would not be successful. Many people have done it. But we could make a government inside Iraq. We have a liberated area in Iraq, which is Kurdistan. And I think what you said would be a helpful thing. I mean, if the main powers in the world, America, Russia, and the others, and the regional governments, because whether we like it or not, regional governments have a say and they should be consulted on what will go on in Iraq, otherwise they will sabotage it. So if something like that would be done, and then they agree all of them on an alternative to be placed, let's say, in Iraqi Kurdistan, which is a liberated area, provided that they will guarantee the security of the Kurds against Iraqi aggression and neighboring states and their future and so on, I think that would be a good idea. Why not? I mean, it's much better to have an alternative before you go into the change on operation, because when you make operations, they will be fighting. Within the ashes of the fighting and all those things, it's very difficult to make an alternative. We now, the Iraqi opposition, can't agree on something. How could they then agree? So I agree. I think it's a good idea, but it should be very well discussed, and everybody should be consulted, including the Iraqis themselves. And I think it could be a good step towards arranging a sound change in Iraq, because the change is very difficult. And when you change the situation in Iraq, you need years for normalization. You know what has happened in Iraq in the last 30 years? 4 million are out. The people inside are suffering from everything. Everything is destroyed. People are deported. So you need years just to normalize. not leave away the democracy or whatever.
Doctor, we need to keep the question short. We need to keep the answers short. Otherwise, we will be here for 10 days and still. Dr. Fuad would like to make a comment. And when you ask a question, if you could please state your name. And if you belong to an organization, I would appreciate if you could say the name of the organization.
And let them direct it to somebody here, if possible, if they want.
Dr. Fuad would like this to make a
I think what we need is not 6+2. Just like the model of Afghanistan, because if we will have 6+2, it means the surrounding countries of Iraq, and I think many of them, they are against change, or they won't change, but they have their own plan for change. What we need is a joint venture between the European countries, some of European countries, and the United States, and supporting the opposition group. That's what the Iraqi opposition need, because without help from Western countries to the opposition, it will be very difficult for them to find solution for Iraqi problem, and it will be difficult to cooperate with the regional government. They are cooperating with some political parties, with each. They have got their own groups, but they are not going to cooperate with all groups together. So I think the alternative is a joint venture, European, American, working together and supporting the opposition groups.
Thank you very much. And if you state your question, would you direct to a member of the panel who wants to answer?
Baroness Nicholson.
Does the panel believe that it is possible to reform the Iraqi army in the ways outlined in the papers and speeches in front of us without the abolition of conscription, since a free army is one of the building blocks of modern democracy?
That question was directed to... Can you explain that in Arabic?
شنو كان الكويشن ما سمعت؟ كان سؤالها السؤال ما سمعني
إلغاء التجنيد الإجباري هل سيكون ضروري لإيجاد جيش يتناغم ويا حكومة تقدمية جيش خارج السياسة؟
يعني جيش إجباري بس.
تجنيد الإجباري
هو في المستقبل بالنظام الديمقراطي الجديد راح تكون هناك إعادة نظر بالقوات المسلحة العراقية بشكل عام، ومن ضمنها كل القوانين الخاصة بالخدمة العسكرية المطوعية والإلزامية. راح ينطرح موضوع إلغاء
In the future, he's saying that the entire Iraqi military institution has to be rechecked and revisited. And basically it has to be reformed.
فالقوانين الخدمة راح يعاد النظر بها، ولكن هناك بالتأكيد يجب أن يبقى جيش عراقي وبقوة تمكن من الدفاع عن العراق.
The military have to stay strong in a way that will be able to defend Iraq.
وستكون في البداية بالضرورة هناك قوة من إلزامية أو التجنيد الإجباري، ولكن التغيرات اللي راح تحدث هو حول مدة الخدمة الإلزامية ومن هو المكلف بهذه الخدمة.
They will change the time for the service in the military, so probably 18 months or something similar to here.
وهذا طبعا يرتبط بالتهديدات المحتملة للعراق وبالوضع الاقتصادي ومتطلبات التنمية اللي تحتاجها البلاد.
This will depend on, of course, many things, the economical and the social development and many other things that's right now demanding for change in Iraq. Please.
I'm Leonard Oberlander. There has been quite a lot of wisdom in framing the issues that have been discussed here this morning, and I think it's very important that these issues be framed and debated and discussed, and in the process of leading to democracy the day after, as we're talking about. There's a very important issue that I think has not been raised, and perhaps it's easy to try to avoid this issue, and that's economic. The vast resources of Iraq, its natural resources, industry, and business will be there the day after. how will the issue be framed regarding the allocation of these resources in civilian society, through law enforcement, through the military? What will be the philosophy of Iraq's economics that will be the basis for its policies for distribution? How will Iraq allocate these resources so that the competition for them throughout society in Iraq will be perceived as being fair, while at the same time competition can lead to usurpation of these resources by a few individuals? So there will be a need for a philosophy of regulation and so forth. And also with foreign investment and foreign assistance, there is the chance of foreign dominance of resources through honest, legitimate competition. How will this issue be framed and addressed for the day after?
Would you like to?
Yes. Well, the question is very important, but we should have an economist here with us to answer this question. But I think there are several issues that should be dealt with. First, the internal and the emergency of feeding our people in Iraq. You know, because there is sanctions from years on Iraq. This issue is very important now for the people. So the domestic issues are very important. We should concentrate on the agriculture, for example, to feed our people. We should, of course, in the oil sector, it's very important, you know, because Iraq is a part of OPEC and other organizations, and this is another issue which we should deal with. Of course, the spending on the army and on various sectors, which has no need for the future of Iraq. We should have a defensive army, so this will decrease the financial spending and also the money which can be spent on rebuilding military plans and other things. This will be decreased. Of course, we should have a body for negotiations with the many countries in the world who want billions of dollars from Iraq. Iran, Kuwait, France, Russia, many countries. So we should have a strategy for rescheduling those debits against Iraq. So I think there are some damages that should be faced by the new government, because so many, we want to have more information so that we can have an economic plan for the future of Iraq. This information, because we are not in the government or we are not in Iraq, this should be well addressed so that we can draw a real plan. But I think investment from foreign companies will be very important for the future of Iraq.
Thank you very much.
My name is Muhannad Al-Ishakhar. I'm with the Iraqi Forum for Democracy. We watch very closely the activities of the Iraqi opposition, but you know, as time progresses, we're getting setbacks after setbacks. We hear the State Department supporting one group, other agencies supporting the other. I heard 2 weeks ago Dr. Chalabi made a request to have a unified vision for future Iraq among all Iraqi opposition. I wanted to see, is this a genuine call? Is this call being implemented? Have they contacted the INA, the PUK, and the other groups? Thank you.
Well, you should ask Dr. Chalabi about it, because he is not here at the moment. But I think, this is a call by all Iraqi opposition that we should agree on some updated agenda for the future of Iraq.
Next question.
Yes.
Oh,
go ahead.
This is
important, huh?
Important question, please. Yeah.
I want to answer. Well, I think the Iraqi opposition is not united. Let's be frank. there are different groups. INC is there supported by the United States. And some others are against cooperating with the United States, like Dawah, like communists, like some other parties. Ba'ath who are pro-Syrian, let's say. Some people, some of them are in between, you see, they are different. What we need, really, is not millions of money. I think money sometimes could corrupt and spoil opposition. And we, of course, have experience in the past about it. I think the best thing would be for the Iraqis to get together themselves. That's ideal. I don't know how it will be done or not. And make a framework within which they will have one political address. Then on that basis, contact United States, Europe, Russia, regional, anybody, so that they could do that. The Kurds have that. The Kurds have differences. They have two regions, but still, they come together to the United States. They talk together to the United States. They have one agenda. They have one project, at least on that basis. But the whole Iraqi opposition together, they don't have it yet. If they don't have it, then I think outside help always scattered, and you never know what will happen. I think that's a big defect we have. Let's say it. Don't be shy about it.
Thank you very much.
Kurt Senior Democratization Policy Institute. This was a question for the general, but it could go to the whole panel. In transitional countries like Yugoslavia, the role of the military and the fact that the military hasn't been purged almost 2 years after the transition is a real problem. It's retarded the democratic transition and prevented Yugoslavia from moving forward as fast as it could. How do you all plan to deal with that issue in Iraq? You've all recognized you want to have a separation between the military and civil public life. How do you want to ensure that, knowing that countries like the United States don't insist on radical purging like in Yugoslavia?
أستاذ نجيب يسأل هو الدور العسكري بالحكومة القادمة حكومة العراق ويقول الدول مثل يوغوسلافيا وبعض الدول نفس الشيء قالوا على أساس العسكري ما يتدخلون بشؤون العراق بشؤون الدولة بس بشؤون بالسياسة بس لحد الآن بعد سنتين هم يدخلون وما قدروا يسيطرون على العسكري وبخصوص أمريكا ما تدعي لهالشيء على أساس العسكري ما يكون عنده دور. أنت شنو الخطط اللي عندك؟
الأساس هو في العراق الجديد العراق الديمقراطي هو الحكم المدني والعسكريين.
In the new Iraq will be a civil government.
العسكريين فرصتهم الآن أن يساهمون بالتغيير وينقذون الشعب العراقي من النظام الدكتاتوري.
The military for time being can help to change and go through the reform and get rid of the current regime.
بعد تحقيق الانقلاب الجيش العراقي يذهب إلى التكنات العسكرية وتجري عليه تغييرات جوهرية كثيرة ذكرناها في المقدمة واللي من عندهم يريد يمارس السياسة راح يتحول إلى شخص مدني يمارس حياته المدنية بالأحزاب السياسية اللي تتشكل وفق نظام وفق التعددية الحزبية اللي راح تكون في العراق.
He said after they topple the regime and then the military can step back and go through a major reform and the people who are in the military if any one of them would like to enter into a political life then they will be welcome to enter into a political life based on a multi-party system.
التوجهات الآن التوجهات المعارضة العراقية والشعب العراقي توجهات مدنية نحو بناء مؤسسات المجتمع المدني.
For time being, we are advocating a civilian government and a civilian movement.
الجيش العراقي اشترك في عدة حروب ووصل وترهل أو تعرض إلى مشاكل كثيرة بحاجة إلى تقليص وإعادة نظر وهذه بحد ذاتها راح تبعده كثيرا عن ممارسة الدور السياسي الكبير في العراق.
He's saying that the Iraqi military have gone through quite a bit on many wars like in Iran and Kuwait and with the Kurds and on and on. They will need a major reform and it will obviously take time for that reform.
والعسكريين العراقيين راح ياخذون دورهم في المستقبل من خلال المهنية العسكرية في إعادة تأسيس جيش صغير رشيق ومنضبط مهمته الدفاع عن العراق وصيانة الدستور.
In the future, they will have a role that will be the role of defending the country, not the regime, and they will follow the civilian government.
أريد أأكد على شيء، أنه هذه الأفكار اللي تدور هنا هي ما تتقاطع كثيرا مع زملائنا العسكريين اللي موجودين في العراق الآن.
It's basically saying that we do not believe to have a military government, and that's not our ideas. Thank you very much. Shukran, Mr.
Can I add
Najib.
something?
Sure.
Can we add?
Yes, please.
Your question is absolutely right. I am with you that the army will be a problem for the future of Iraq. So we should have a third-party guarantor from the international community for supporting the Iraqis for their future. And also, as I mentioned in my speech, that we should have a charter agreement for the constitutional period and for the future of Iraq before the election. And these factors can be a guarantee for the civil government and for guarantee that the army will not make some problems, as you mentioned, in Yugoslavia and also in other countries.
Yes, please. Yes.
I'm Dr. Michael, Washington Kurdish Institute. I'm Iraqi woman. Okay, recently we heard about democracy in Iraq, but I notice and I feel that this democracy in opposition movement was born on one feet. Let me say it in Arabic. ولدت أرجاء هذه الديمقراطية. لماذا? Because woman is absent. How comes woman absent? Now in panel, where is women? Where is guys, women in the panel? Where is women to build civil society? I have second question to Sheikh Hamad, please. You mentioned we should respect law. Which law? If Iraqi law that was 100 years, and I'm saying Islamic law because I'm from the Islamic countries, consider women as second citizen person. So which law we supposed to respect it? Am I supposed to respect this law? And am I supposed to say this is democracy? And I can bring right now examples from Quran that consider me I'm second-class citizen. If there is time, if you want to, I can discuss this and I can say that. But I'm sorry, I'm not going to say this because there is no time. Sorry.
Let me answer the first part of the question. Woman is not absent because you are here and we are proud of it. And I want to explain that democracy is not a magic word. Democracy is a process, is a culture, and something which takes a lot of time to be comprehended, adopted, and defended. And your presence and your defending the women in here is a very good, healthy sign for the future democracy of Iraq, and we are proud of it again. So this is the answer of the first question.
Yes, well, it's very good questions. Of course, there is no woman here because you should claim the organizer, not us. Yes.
None of them came forward.
Yes.
Not the organizer, it was open.
Anyway, I think women will play and should play a role in democratic Iraq. And when we talk about law, I think law should be discussed within the parliament. I think when you talk about Sharia law, according to Islam, yes. Well, there are some things in the Sharia law should be respected by all the Iraqis. And well, still, you can, if you know, in Iraq, the civil civil courts. There are the laws for the families, for the marriage, for what they call many things regarding the families. And there is a court for that. And of course, we should have a permanent constitution for the future of Iraq, because there is no permanent constitution at the moment. There is still, from 34 years or more, what they call a temporary constitution. So in the permanent constitution, we should discuss the law which suited Iraq as an Arab and Muslim country. And I think Islam is respect the woman. I don't know if you are Muslim or Christian. I think all the religions respect women, and you can write the Bible or the Quran and find, in Quran there is a text, complete text called Al-Nisa. So, and I think Sharia can do a lot for the practicing law within the society. But there's no practicing of Sharia law within the Iraqi society. So you should see what, go deeply in the Sharia and find what is suited our society for the democratic reforms in Iraq. And this should be discussed by a body of law people from different sects of the society, and this should be decided by the parliament for what is important for our society in Iraq.
Thank you very much. Yeah, please.
The Westminster Foundation for Democracy in the UK. I want to congratulate the lady for bringing the issue up, because it took a question right out of my mouth. What I was going to ask you, is there an active women's movement in Iraq, including Kurdistan? And do any of the opposition groups have a policy agenda for women's participation in any reform process?
Well, this is all related to individual groups, and it depends how they see the urgency of this issue. But for example, we in the Iraqi National Accord, we have women in a very leading positions, and we issue a monthly newspaper called The Women of Iraq. So we did pay attention to the side, and I think we are cultivating on it and developing it.
Actually, I think there are defects in that aspect, definitely, but still there is participation, and I give an example of the Kurds. You see, Kurds in the administration in Kurdistan. In Erbil, there are 2 ministers who are women inside the administration, although there are some other high posts, including some in the courts. In Suleimani also, there's 1 minister, and the vice president of the high court is a woman. And the intention in Kurdistan is increasing to increase the women participation. They have now a good percentage in the congresses, the parties, the levels. There is no obstacle in front of them. And the leaderships are encouraging women participation. So I think things are improving. And of course, it couldn't be done overnight.
I would like just to add a comment in that. I believe, of course, just by saying women's participation, obviously it's easy saying it than doing it. But I believe, because living here 26, 27 years, one of the things that I've observed between U.S. and our country, the old country, Iraq. Iraq is an agricultural country. Being an agricultural, obviously the communities are closed in, and usually are the men who are needed most for farming and various other agricultural activity. So if we try to enhance and develop the economy of the new Iraq, which basically create and encourage small businesses and small business for women, just like there is an organization or the Small Business Administration that will give money for women to encourage and develop some of those businesses. It can be small as knitting and sewing and things like that, and moving it towards semi-industrial, not completely. That itself would automatically help emerging the woman into the society of working society by coming and being the breadwinner of the society. Automatically, you will receive that recognition. And I'm saying this because I am from Zaho. I'm Kurdish, and I'm from Zakho, so I've seen it, and I have 4 sisters. So this is probably one of the way, at least, and that's what my focus was, economical to move and encourage the small business, as small business is the backbone of economy of any country. And I believe that that will help. Rather than just saying it, I could say right now, come and participate. Okay, then what? Participate in what? Obviously, there had to be some real groundwork for the participation, and I think through business, not just propaganda. Gentleman in the back.
I'm Ismail Zahir. I would like to ask General Salehi 2 things, please. Arabic. Arabic? For the public. Okay. In English. In English. I would like to ask General Salehi first how he would explain that there is a movement of officers working separate of the political parties and believing at the same time that they would like to have the army under civilian society. They will make coup d'etat and give the power to the society, like all other people, or what? I don't know. This is first question. Second question. Once Dr. Mahmoud described Iraq as a sort of museum of crimes. There's no any crime, human, anti-humanity or anti-genocide or anti-Kurds, anti-women, anti-other people had never been committed. All kinds of crimes. And majority of those crimes had been committed on the hands of officers. I would like to listen from him, hear him saying what he will do with those things. First.
Can you ask him in Arabic the same question?
كثير من جرائم الغالبية العظمى من جرائم اللي حصلت في العراق حصلت على ايد قوات عسكرية. كيف تفكر مجموعة ضباط ادريسنج هاي يعني كيف تعالج هذه المشكلة. المشكلة الثانية إلى أي قدر راح يصير الجيش مهتم بتطوير الوعي باتفاقية جنيفا كونفنشن اللي هي جزء من التعليم باعتبارها اتفاقية دولية. Because this is very important. Geneva Convention is the rules how to army have to behave inside and outside, داخل العراق وخارج العراق. And if we will have a free country, what we will do for those officers. Thank you. إذا صار بلدنا ديمقراطي إن شاء الله في المستقبل القريب، شو هي الإجراءات مفترض تحصل تجاه الضباط اللي اقترفوا جرائم بحق الشعب العراقي؟ قصف كيميائي للأكراد، جرائم الإبادة الكبرى، جرائم بتجفيف جنوب العراق، تهجير الفلسطينيين، تهجير الشيعة، قتل المواطنين بالسجون. كيف راح تصير العملية؟ شكرا.
I have to mention what he's saying. He's basically asking the role of the... Oh, he did?
Okay. راح نبدأ من حيث انتهى الأخ إسماعيل فيما يتعلق بالجرائم اللي ارتكبت. في جرائم ارتكبها النظام العراقي على مدى 35 سنة. هذه مو فقط القوات المسلحة العراقية زجت قسرا بجانب من ذني الجرائم. أما الجرائم الأخرى فيما يتعلق بالترحيل والتهجير والأهوار واضطهاد الشيعة واضطهاد الكرد وعموم العراقيين بالداخل، هذه المؤسسة العراقية الحاكمة الآن تتحمل كل نتائجها. هناك
to answer the first part of the question, basically he's saying that the current crimes or the crimes in the past that you mentioned against Kurds and Shia and the ethnic cleansing, the chemical use and all of that, it's not committed by the Iraqi military. It's basically committed by the Iraqi regime and the institution that represent, which is the regime again, but not as a whole military institution.
هناك جرائم ارتكبت زجت بها القوات المسلحة والجيش العراقي، وأيضا تختلف هذه الجرائم. قسم نفذها الجيش، قسم نفذتها جزء من المؤسسة العسكرية الحاكمة اللي شكلها صدام، الحرس الخاص والحرس الجمهوري، وهذه هي اللي ارتكبت بها أبشع الجرائم.
There are some of the crimes that you've mentioned have been committed by the Iraqi military, but the other ones are committed by the special forces that was created by the Iraqi regime, such as the Republican Guards.
فيما يتعلق بمحاسبة المجرمين بشكل عام، هذه سياسة الدولة الجديدة في العراق، وكيف راح تنظر إلى معالجة هذا الكم الهائل من الجرائم. هناك جرائم كثيرة.
And in regard to how to treat the criminals, the people who have committed this crime, that's going to be the responsibility of the new Iraqi government to bring them to justice.
ولكن يجب أن يكون هناك مبدأ أن الإنسان بالعراق يحاسب على ما ارتكبه من جرم بيده بنفسه، وليس على ما انتمى من مؤسسة أو حزب معين. قد تقدر السلطة الجديدة في العراق القادم أن تحاسب كل حزب البعث اللي أعضاء يزيدون عن 1,000,000، وتحاسب كل الجيش العراقي اللي منتسبيه زاد أيضا عن 1,000,000. بعدين كل الأجهزة ساهمت في إدامة ماكينة صدام.
And he's saying that you should not, the new government should not basically bring all the people who belong to the Ba'ath Party or the military to justice, because a lot of those crimes are committed or were committed based on an order that they received from their higher commands.
ولكن أجي على سؤالك الدايركت فيما يتعلق بالقادة العسكريين اللي تثبت عليهم ارتكابهم جرائم بحق الشعب العراقي، يجب أن يحاسبون على الأقل حتى الآخرين يتبرون من ساحة التجريم.
But the military leaders, they should be the one that basically brought to justice the leaders who have committed those crimes or ordered to commit these crimes.
ومستقبلا يجب أن تدخل ثقافة حقوق الإنسان ضمن المناهج التعليمية للقوات المسلحة العراقية والأجهزة ذات العلاقة بالتعامل المباشر مع الشعب.
And in the future, that has to be, the human right has to be part of the military institution reformation. Thank you very much. Shukran.
Can I add something? Yes. Very quickly. Yes, very quickly. Well, there are several kinds of crimes. Crimes against the nation, crimes against the individuals, and crimes against the international and the regional countries. Well, all these issues should be well addressed by domestic courts and international courts, according to the UN Charter. This is one thing. The other thing, I think it's very important to have in mind that we have also either to forget everything, which is, this is very, unreal, or by enacting an amnesty for that, or to prosecute everyone implicated in those crimes. And this depends on the rule of the government, or prosecutes selectively. And I think those issues should be well addressed in the transition period by the government, by the future government, so that the people of Iraq will trust this government and support this government and support the transition to democracy. Without this trust, well, I think the people will not, either in the military side or in the civil side, will not support these kinds of reforms for the future of Iraq.
Shukran. General Shamari.
General Shamari, Iraqi officers, comments. First of all, to what Sheikh Mohammed said, that he needs guarantor, third-party guarantor between the army and the political leadership, and I don't agree completely with that, because from now we are Iraqis.
General Shamari.
I think what Sheikh Mohammed mentioned, that he needs a third party as guarantor to guarantee the future of Iraq. We are Iraqis. We have to trust each other from now. We have to build our minds about coming democracy now, and we don't need third party guarantees. This is my opinion. Second, I would like to comment and follow up to what my friend General Najib said. In order to define the role of the armed forces, we have to look at to that role through the strategic options. If we look right now to the strategic options, first the invasion, second the Afghan way, Afghani's way. In both, military has to play a great role. But that doesn't mean the leadership be on the side. The military role is a tactical work, served the political role. And I would like to answer also to what Mr. Zahir said about Geneva. Geneva is not the responsibility of the army, it's the political leadership. And also I said everything had been done by the Iraqi armed forces. Saddam Hussein, as my friend Najib said, Saddam Hussein is the only person responsible for that. Because the army is a slice of the society, anything committed mistakenly, we have to go to the root. The army is like someone pushed in the middle of the ocean. He has to swim to reach the shore. Thank you.
Well, I think about Mr. Zahir's question and the comments made, there's a point which has to be very clear. Of course, in future Iraq, one has to build a new society. So there should be an idea and thinking of reconciliation, tolerance, and these things, unity. That's why you cannot go after anybody who has done any crime, whether small or big. But there are very big crimes committed. Let's say, as in our case, the Anfal crime, 182,000 are still disappeared. They disappear, we don't know where are the graves. The chemicals, the Barzanis, 8,000, the Failis, all these big, destroying 5,000 villages. Of course the orders were given by Saddam. Of course they were given locally by Ali Hassan Majid. But who executed these things? All those people were taken away by army trucks, by the army people they know. At least that's why the heads of the key places in the army, chief of staff, head of military intelligence, head of these very key positions, I think they know and they have responsibility. And some of them, they are out until now, they haven't said anything about those crimes. At least they should explain the crimes, how they happened, where are the people, where are the graves, at least to make themselves show that they are innocent. They regret it. Some of them, they don't even regret. So I think those people who are few, not many, should be tried, whether they are outside or inside, and somebody should ask them about it. But the rest, of course, there are many people in the army, even head of division, these things, they have executed orders. They were not head of intelligence. They were not head of the nucleus of the power. They were not chief of staff. This is different. They have executed. Nobody should go after them. So this is the king. You have to differentiate, but few should be persecuted. Otherwise, who had made those crimes? I mean, Ali Hassan Majid hasn't transported 180,000 on his shoulders to the south. So these things should be counted also.
Thank you very much. That's an excellent comment. Thank you very much.
Well, about what General Fawzi said. Well, I think after the signature in Safwan tent in 1991, there is no sovereignty within Iraq. The 687 UN resolution, the biggest or the resolution within the UN history, and other resolutions. So talking about sovereignty is not existed. Well, when I talk about the guarantor, I think this should be decided by any future government, transitional government, or so on. Well, we are discussing and debating now what is important for the future of Iraq. We are not a decision maker here. So, and this is one thing. The guarantor can be a UN agency or a body, like what Van der Stoel mentioned and advised, that there should be a UN monitors for the violation or for other things. Or there are various international NGOs that can be monitor various things and reforms for the future of Iraq. And if we want to talk more about the sovereignty, what does that mean, the safe haven in the north of Iraq and the 36 and 33 no-fly zones, and the airplanes on a daily basis from 11 years upon Iraq? Well, these issues should be well addressed and well discussed, and so that we can know that when we say talk about the guarantor is something against the sovereignty or not.
I'd just like to comment, but Sheikh Mohammed, everybody's here is part of the hopefully future leadership of Iraq, and obviously we expect as citizens of Iraq, people like you and others in various groups, whether INC or other one, to at least accept and adapt such thing that there will be a tribunal or something in Iraq that they will bring these people to justice, and they will acknowledge the various method has been used against Iraq as a whole and the Kurds, of course, specifically what has happened. So, next question, please.
I'm Peter Slugler. I was interested to hear what General Fauzi had to say, but I think we have to remember that it is not just Mr. Milosevic who is on trial in The Hague, and that there must be, it seems to me, some sort of international tribunal to bring people to account. Whether this infringes Iraqi sovereignty, I don't think matters very much. We have to recognize that the terrible things have happened, and terrible things have not simply been done by Saddam Hussein by himself. And that whether these people are part of the special forces or whether they are part of the army, it doesn't seem to me to matter. And this it is no defense to say I was simply obeying orders. We know this from Nuremberg, and we know this from The Hague. And this may be very unpalatable to people who are trying to rebuild, let's say, an Iraqi army, but it is true.
Thank you.
My name is Alkis Gamadopoulos. I work in the European Commission. I'm here on a private basis. May I please come back perhaps and focus our mind on the issue of social change and democratization and the issue of civil society. I work on human rights, and I can tell you the conclusion we have on human rights is as follows. There can be no democratization. There can be no respect of human rights. Above all, the buzzword today in international fora, there can be no good governance without a vibrant civil society. And my question is, I seem to see that in Iraq there is no civil society, and at the same time Iraq is heading towards an abyss. Chaos, the collapse of Saddam Hussein, the collapse of a government structure. What will happen in this country when his structure goes and there is no civil society in that country? That's my first question. The second question is, history has shown us, I think, in 3 cases, when a country is faced by, or 3 countries, I'm going to give you cases, have been faced by civil strife, when there is civil society that exists there before, it can bring back the country to stability. Lebanon is one, Kuwait is another. They were faced by one was invasion, the other was civil war. Because they had a very strong civil society before, they rebalanced themselves somehow. Somalia is an example where, after conflicts in the early 1990s, there was no civil society. The country went straight to famine and destruction. The third thing is, I would like to ask the members of the panel, have you thought about networking with civil society organizations across the Arab world? You have some very good Arab NGOs who can, for example, in the West Bank, Gaza, they're brilliant. You have some very good ones in Lebanon. You have some very good ones in Egypt. Has there been contacts in that respect? Thank you. And one final thing, I'm sorry. We talked about women. There's another element that really needs to be taken into account in the Arab world, I think. It is youth. It is a young population, and it is, from what I understand, a very frustrated population. They must be taken into account in any future democratization element, And that links into the very important role of education, human rights, and bringing up a new type of citizen. Thank you.
I think it's wrong to say civil society doesn't exist. It must be organized, but it exists. Even in formal groups.
Yeah, I do agree if the system or the regime of the regime of Saddam Hussein will collapse, his system will collapse, and even the army will collapse. I don't agree with the gentleman here that the army will be there after Saddam Hussein. This army will disappear, and that's good. That's good for Iraq, that's good for civil society, because this army, first of all, is an ideological army. Second, this army has participated in all wars, external and internal. So it is an army, it must go. And we need a new army. And not Iraq doesn't need a strong army, because then when there will be a strong army in Iraq, that means once again internal wars. That means once again actually a threat to the neighbors. What Iraq needs is a democratic system with more civil society organizations and not more soldiers. And I do agree that in Iraq we don't have the modern civil societies, just if you are comparing it with the European societies. Well, we have got traditional civil societies, and these are also important. So we have got tribes. Of course, Saddam Hussein is trying to change the function of the tribes to be part of his system. But tribes can also function in different ways. Besides that, as I mentioned, in Iraqi Kurdistan now, we have got a process of democratization, and many civil societies emerged, actually. And, but the help from outside world, especially from democratic countries and Western countries, is very important to help these civil societies and to have basis for a democratic system.
Thank you. Please.
I'd first like to come to that gentleman there when he was saying that there is no democracy in Iraq. Well, I really beg to differ. What I would do is I would invite you to go to Kurdistan and see the kind of civil society that has emerged there and what the people are doing. My second question goes to Sheikh Mohammed. He was actually, again, saying that Iraq was actually practicing democracy way before '92. I really would like to get some examples of that, because I am not aware. Oh, sorry, then it's my mistake. I would pull the question back then.
So you want an answer or?
No, it's okay. But it's a last question, because otherwise, if you don't want to get a coffee break, the next session is 12 o'clock. Yeah. Mr. Gentleman, then last one is you. Okay, sorry.
Anthony Shadid with the Boston Globe. I had a question for Mr. Kazem. It's how clear has the U.S. government, in your opinion, how clear has the U.S. government been in private in terms of its strategy and aims ahead? And then the second question, part of that is, how do you see the Group of Four discussions evolving with the Shiite opposition and the Kurdish groups in coming months?
How clear is the U.S. government? How clear is the U.S. government toward the opposition? And have you seen anything about the Group of Four? Have you heard anything?
Oh, the Group of Four.
But how clear is the U.S. government? Make sure you're the best one.
Well, we are in USA, aren't we? They have been very supportive, actually. That's a short answer. Very clear, honest discussion and communication.
In what way?
Well, we cannot talk about everything in this stage, but we are very optimistic.
سعد فرج عراقي اكتيفيست. عندي سؤال موجه الى الاخ نجيب الصالحي. طبعا هو السؤال يشغل I'll follow with English. يشغل جميع المعنيين بالشؤون السياسية تجاه العراق. هو دور التنظيم الديمقراطي في المؤسسة العسكرية. طبعا أنت تطرقت بالحديث على هذا الموضوع في عدة محاضرات سابقة وفي هذا بهاللقاء أيضا. كيف يعني تعتقد أنه هو كشخص ضابط عسكري كيف هو أن تمنعه من الانتماء إلى المؤسسات السياسية داخل العراق؟ وطبعا هو هذا وأنا باعتقادي أنه راح يكون مضمون بالدستور العراقي. وسؤال ثاني أيضا، وهل هناك فصل بين الجيش والتنظيمات السياسية؟ How you vision that? What is the role of the Iraqi army within the political establishment, and how you vision this separating both the Iraqi army from the political parties that is going to be guaranteed by the new constitution and the democratic system that we're going to be established in future Iraq.
الجيش المستقبلي ينبغي أن يكون جيش وطني محترف. هذا يتطلب من عنده أن يكون بعيد عن التكتلات الحزبية.
The future Iraqi military should be a national military and independent and not belong to any political party.
الجيش القادم يتمتع بالثقافة السياسية العامة والثقافة الديمقراطية وخاصة حقوق الإنسان، لكنه أعتقد من غير الصحيح أن يكون هناك مجال لتنظيمات حزبية داخل هذا الجيش، لأنه بالحالة هذه راح نتوقع أنه الحوار راح يكون بلغة السلاح والبنادق وليس باللغة الديمقراطية اللي ننشدها، وهذا ما معمول به في كل دول العالم.
They should be a professional military, which basically independent again from all of this political party and also believing in human rights.
Well, the Iraqi officer, as a citizen of that country, he is guaranteed by the constitution to have political opinion about things. How you vision to separate that from the political
organize the relationship between the civil society and the military society.
And
democracy doesn't prevail. When it prevails in the society, there's no democracy for the army and democracy for the civilian. Why? There is a law which organizes the participant of each one according to his duties. That will come as part of papers to be arranged and to be studied and to be implemented eventually.
Thank you very much. We're really out of time. Just have this gentleman's been asking me, so go ahead.
Well, my question is to Professor Fuad and to the general. As regards to the key leadership in the Iraqi army, we're talking about we cannot bring all the key leaders to the justice, and maybe there will be slippers in the back. And what happened in Russia and partially in Yugoslavia? They, after that, committed some crimes and gathered again and put another strike on top of the ongoing democratic regime. So you feel such a kind of possibilities, and what will be done? You're gonna execute all that officers, and if you're not gonna execute them, so what will be happen? There's a possibility every time they're gonna take control of the regime, because the Iraqi society is not that much like the other countries. It's the same as Yugoslavia and the Russian community. It's being governed by the regime.
Thank you very much. We're out of time. He wanted to make a statement, but you can discuss with him privately. There will be other opportunities. Thanks a lot.
We'll reconvene here at 12 noon.
That's correct. You have 5 minutes.